chair. So anyway, I wanted to welcome everybody here. Does everybody here, or who hasn't heard of Action 52 or Cheetahmen? Everybody's heard of it? All right. Well, you and about the last count, we think that there's about 4 million people between the Angry Video Game Nerd, Pat the NES Punk, myself, and what have you, followers and people who seem to know anywhere from some to an awful lot about Cheetahmen and Action 52. There's so much mystery surrounding this game, or I should say this infamous game, because this is a game that seems to live now for some 22 years based upon the fact that it is the game that everybody loves to hate. It's obviously not the game that everybody loves to play.
Cheers to that.
And in some instances it's pretty hard to play because it's in pretty scarce quantities out there. So anyway, we're all set. Okay, thanks, John. So anyway, today what I thought we would do, I think we're all set.
Did you play your video yet, or?
No, that starts in about 10 minutes. Thanks, sir. So anyway, ConBravo asked if I would give a little talk on Cheetahmen and Action 52, since it's still, some 22 years later, seems to be a fairly hot topic. In fact, I think I've characterized it as, if you want to see a fight break out, walk into a room and say, I love Cheetahmen, or say, I hate Cheetahmen, and there obviously will be punches thrown by both parties. So anyway, what I thought I'd do today, and this is really informal, I didn't prepare anything, I just thought I'd talk a little bit about the history and the mystery of Action 52 and Cheetahmen. Afterwards, I'd like to tell you a little bit about a new project that we're doing, where we're putting together a Cheetahmen 2 game for release. And I'd like to show you, you guys will actually get to be the first people to preview a 10-minute video with the Angry Video Game Nerd, Pat the NES Punk, the Game Chasers out of Dallas, and myself, as we beg and plead for y'all to send us $60 so we can make Cheetahmen 2 available. So anyway, and we do a pretty good job of it too, I might add. We finished filming this thing on Thursday night about, I don't know, 11:30, 12 o'clock. They did the final little touches on it, and I was downloading it about 5 minutes before my plane took off from Dallas on Friday morning, and I have it here. I finally got to see it myself Friday night, and I thought it was great, and I want to see what y'all's reaction is to it too. We're going to plug it in, turn it on, and y'all be the first ones to see it. And it's edited. Well, let me clarify one thing too. I need to tell you. Some of you probably are familiar with the Angry Video Game Nerd. He sometimes gets a little carried away in his enthusiasm as he's reviewing games. Well, he did in this one also. We had to edit it out because it's going on Kickstarter, which is kind of, lots of people see that. So this is a highly edited version, I will tell you that right now. But you will be able to see the full unedited version on Cinemassacre or Retroware TV and across the web beginning August the 8th. So if you want to see the unedited thing, tune into one of those stations. But we'll talk more about that later. Anyway, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I start businesses, build them up, sell them, make mistakes and have to close them, do all sorts of things. But one of my serial ventures was in the video game and video movie business. Started in 1988. And over the course of that time, I started in my garage, literally, moved to my living room, and then my wife said, I can't take this anymore, go rent a warehouse. So, because it fortunately was very successful. And over the years, I primarily did video movies. And I built what we called the opening store inventory packages for Blockbuster Video of Canada, Blockbuster Video of the U.S., Hawaii, Mexico, Uruguay, Paraguay, Panama, and all over the world. And every time a franchisee needed to open a store, we would send them 10,000 movies. Very specific, highly specialized, and it was kind of like a rare book business back in those days. You had to go find the movies because you just didn't order them from a studio. So you had to find them and prop them and put them together in these libraries and sell them. And it was a highly profitable business. Over the years, as you all are probably aware if you rented at Blockbuster at all, they moved from just renting movies to renting movies and games. And we changed the name of our company from Movies for Sale to Movies and Games for Sale, and started doing the same thing with games that we did with movies. So for about 10 years, I was the largest distributor of video games in the United States. To give you an example, every time a Blockbuster Video opened up, 3 small mom and pop video stores went out of business, and I went right behind them and bought the entire contents of all 3 stores. And we'd ship them back to Dallas to my warehouse, and we'd clean them up and do everything that we needed to do, and we'd ship them to the next Blockbuster store that created 3 more stores that went out of business that I went in and bought them. And I did that for a number of years. But in the later years, the emphasis and the focus was very, very much on video games. Anyway, and in 1990, I had really gotten involved in all kinds of projects with video games, by that point taking care of the video rental stores. And I heard this rumor about this guy in Florida who was going to put out a Nintendo game, and he had 52 games on 1 cartridge. Well, at that point in time, that was unheard of. Most games at that point in time sold from between $40 and $60 a piece, and he was talking about putting a cartridge out that had 52 games on it. He was going to sell it for $199, or as they like to advertise, less than $4 a game. So, and I'm going to tell you now the unvarnished true story, because I do know the true story of how this all happened. He got this idea one day, and he was an investment banker. He really wasn't involved in the game business, but he was also an entrepreneur. So he went out and raised $20 million. Now, what he didn't tell anybody is half of it money came from the drug dealers in South America, and half of the money came from the Saudi princes in Saudi Arabia. They put all the $20 million together, and Vince Perry was his name. He decided that he was going to go ahead and do this game and get it distributed. Well, his first thing that Vince did is he went out and hired 3 college kids who had never programmed a game in their entire life. They were music. They knew a little bit about computers, because let me tell you, the computer they were using back then was an Amiga computer. Okay, that tells you what period of time we're in. Okay, and they did music stuff on it. They were at a music studio, in fact, when he found them. And he said, "Hey, you guys want to program some games for me?" And they went, "Yeah, sure." And so Vince takes those 3 guys. The lead guy is a man by the name of Mario Gonzalez today. Kid back then, fresh out of college, and Vince sends all 3 of them to a studio in Salt Lake City. Now, at the time, this was a first-rate studio. They were doing Star Wars, as a matter of fact, at that time, putting that game together. And he sent them there, gave them a full week training in programming video games, brought them back to Florida, locked them in a room, and said, "You have 90 days to develop, program, and have ready 52 games to go on this cartridge."
Wow.
Well, needless to say, I think I can tell you right here and now why Action 52 is known today as one of the biggest train wrecks in the world, because they had not a clue as to what they were doing. But they were enthusiastic. They got 52 games put together. Now, as any of you have ever played it or have read anything about it, you also know that 51 of them didn't hardly work. Some of them were duplicates of one another. Some of them were blatant rip-offs of other games. I mean, Trainwreck is saying it nicely as to what was taking place here. Now, music in some cases was decent because that was their background. They did music, and that today Mario Gonzalez still is involved with and loves to do music for video games. Anyway, to continue on with the story, before they were finished, I had heard a rumor about this guy, in Florida, and I got his name, and I'm being the entrepreneur that I am, I figured out a way to get a hold of him, and I got a hold of him and said, "Hey, I want to be the distributor for Action 52 for North America." I always think big, okay? Not Dallas, Texas, North America. We'll start there and go big. So he said, "Okay, well, why don't we get together and we'll talk about it." And so I hopped on an airplane and flew from Dallas to Miami, and I met